It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting if you just email me directly at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. If you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon, the Opperman Report Patreon. Everything you hear Monday to Friday on AM FM radio, you can find over there at Patreon with all the ads and the commercials cut out. Plus, it's the best search engine to find old shows. We got like 4,000 hours of shows on there. 11 years. We had our 11-year anniversary this week in September, I guess it was 24th, yesterday. So a happy anniversary to me. 11 miserable years. A lot of good stuff on there, too. We got the brand new 700 pages of the Franklin cover-up FBI dump. I got the P. Diddy indictment, all in the free section on Patreon, Opperman Report Patreon. I do a live show every Friday night at Spreaker.com. You go there, there's a chat room, and you get an email notification when we put up new content. And we got all our shows there, 11 years worth of shows. Really excited about today's show. We got Paul Stobbs. Now, you can check him out. He's got a YouTube channel called Understanding Conspiracy. He was just telling me about some show he's going to be doing about the parasites being almost equivalent to demonic possession. Fascinating stuff there. He does a live show every Sunday night called Truth Therapy Session. I'm going to try and get in on some of that. 4 p.m. Eastern Time and 9 p.m. over there in the UK. But we're talking about his book. And the book is The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns. Volume 1, The History. Mr. Paul Stobbs, are you there?
I am, Ed. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, Paul, this sounds so fascinating. Before we get into this book, The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns, tell us about yourself. Who is Paul Stobbs? And tell us about the Understanding Conspiracy YouTube channel.
Sure. So the channel was started in 2014 as kind of a passion project at the end of my art degree in 2014 when I was studying at university. Up until that point, I had spent a few years kind of delving into the world of conspiracy theory, and I was hearing people talking about the end of the world in 2012 as the Mayan calendar was coming to an end, and I was just thinking, what on earth are people seeing that's making them think such a thing? I was just fascinated, by the whole concept that people would even think of such grand, all-encompassing concepts, So I kind of made it my obsession and subject matter for my artwork going forward, and I was going through my own experiences, trying to find some kind of faith or connection to God, as you typically do as a stereotype art student in the 20s, So I was experimenting with a lot of psychedelics and kind of, pretty much in that typical stoner artist realm, I suppose. But I was always sincerely searching for something more than the day-to-day, and I've always kind of been that kind of guy. So I ended up creating this YouTube channel at the end of all of this. I'm a born-again Christian. I came to Christ through a lot of this research in 2014. And the channel has kind of been a passion project since then to get to understand all the theories and ideas out there in the conspiracy realm. And I try to ground it in a biblical perspective. And from that, swimming around in biblical history and researching the contrarian Christian worldview on these obscure subjects like demonology, giants of the past, the Nephilim, spiritual warfare, and just the general conspiracy we have to deal with today of nefarious secret societies, pulling strings in the shadows who seemingly worship Lucifer for reasons which seem odd on the surface, And I created this concept which, from my art background, I always had this question. So what would the Nephilim have looked like then?
Well, let me jump in there before you get to the Nephilim. Your art education, what is your medium in art? What kind of art do you do?
Well, I've always grown up as like a painter and drawer traditionally, or a sculptor, using very hands-on, not digital. I was inept with a computer for many years. I was very much a hands-on person, but as I got to university, it becomes more about a study of philosophy when you start doing fine art. So it's about ideas more than the medium. But I suppose I switched my medium to photography and video creation. But I'm always going to be a creator, a painter, and a drawer. You don't lose that passion. But as I get older, and I'm sadly getting some form of arthritis in my fingers, and being a father, tired all the time, and no time for painting or drawing anymore, I've focused my creativity into art, video creation, I suppose. So that's what I do on YouTube now. Yeah.
As you get older, you look like a really young guy. How old are you? Older.
No, I am young. I'm only 32, but I've worked in retail as a manager of a supermarket for so many years, I've done a lot of damage to my cartilage all around my body, and yeah, I'm feeling the wear and tear now, to be honest.
Oh, when you hit 62, bro, I just had a birthday this month. You say you had a born again experience in 2014, but the way you describe it, you led yourself to the Lord through your research, or someone led you?
Well, when you start researching conspiracy, I came at it originally from kind of the Gnostic-y New Age consciousness Jungian archetype perspective, the typical, all is one type of mentality, because I didn't have really any foundation to understand Christianity. I wasn't raised a Christian or in a Christian household, so it would have seemed a bit alien to me, that concept. But as I started to research truther topics, I kept bumping into the Christian perspective on all of it, and how the people who rule the world do believe in Satan, whether you believe in it or not, and they've got their agendas at play, and they are Luciferian through and through. And I kept bumping into the Christian solution to all of this. It's because of what Jesus did that we even have a conspiracy. And I didn't want to believe it for a long time, but I was listening to a lot of preachers online and pastors. Derek Prince was a huge influence for me, who's not with us anymore. And I guess it got to a point where, I'd been exploring psychedelics in that realm for so long that I kind of burnt myself out and got to an exacerbated point in my life where I had no answers. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no direction in life. I was broken down and burnt out. And I asked simply, okay, God, if you're real, show me. I need help. I can't do this on my own anymore. I don't know what I'm doing, And he delivered. Is all I can really say from my own perspective. And since that day, I've not been the same person. I would say a radical change happened to me, and I haven't touched a single drug since. I've lost all of my addictions, heavy nicotine addiction, cannabis addiction, all gone. Things just got better in my life significantly. I'm now happily married with the second kid on the way, and it's kind of, I never thought I would be where I am today then, prior to that moment, and I think I can't prove God's existence through my own experiences, but I've certainly had my own experiences since that day, which have proven to me it's true. So my faith is pretty solid in that, to be honest.
Yeah, trust me, I understand what you're saying. I had my own born-again experience, too, but around 1989. I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I myself, with LSD, I was a smuggler. I was a multi-ton smuggler. So I got born again right after they let me out of jail on my birthday. Now, I became a Pentecostal, Assemblies of God, Pentecostal. What about you? What kind of denomination would you consider yourself?
I wouldn't say I have a denomination. I suppose I'm a non-denominational contrarian Christian by most standards, because the things I talk about are quite out there by a pretty basic church standard, because I'm talking about things like the Nephilim, pre-flood, antediluvian, gods, fallen angels mating with human women type stuff. So a lot of that,
which is all in the Bible.
Oh, absolutely. I know it's Genesis 6, absolutely, but it's not really. I've not found a church yet publicly that was willing to discuss these things. So I suppose in a way I've kind of created a community online. I have a Telegram with 1,500 strong, and we have a solid. I've had this channel for over a decade, so we've kind of built a strong, I suppose, an online church in a way, but I wouldn't call myself a pastor. I'm certainly not a spiritual leader. I'm just a guy who talks too much, But yeah, I suppose that's where I get my fellowship. But I wouldn't class myself as any particular denomination.
Yeah, in my notes, I was about to ask you as you were talking. Did you find the church to welcome your ideas and your theories? It's very difficult for people to. No,
yeah. I didn't. I did try. And it's nothing against those people, I'm not saying they're wrong for not listening to these ideas. It's just, that's their way of doing it. It's just not what I need for my relationship with God. I need to do this kind of stuff and talk about these type of things. And if they're happy and safe and saved in Christ in their church with what they discuss, all power to them, but it's just not what I was looking for.
And back to your personal faith, do you believe like in the gifts of the Spirit and the fruit of the Spirit, miracles and healings, tongues, that kind of stuff?
Yes, I think a lot of it would have ended when Pentecost ended and when the gospel was preached to all the earth. So I'm not so much on the speaking on tongues front, though I do know a lot of people are passionate about that thing. I do believe the Holy Spirit still works through us today, and things like visions and dreams and discernment and those gifts of peace and calm and the rest that comes with the Holy Spirit. I do think those things are still going strong today. Yeah.
I got you. Now, the Nephilim looked like clowns. What do you got here, man? What's going on with this?
Yeah, well, I know what it sounds like. Trust me, I really do. And in a way, I'm kind of playing you a little bit because I know the title's a bit of a hook. It pricks people's ears up, and that's kind of what I'm going for. Because fundamentally, I'm trying to reach a specific audience, which is the psychedelic community. As somebody who was in that community, dabbling in those things, I know there's a strong basis there who are seeking spirituality but don't have any way of connecting with the Christian understanding. And I'm using the clown as a way to hook them in to teach them about biblical history and explain the things they're experiencing on psychedelics from a biblical standpoint. Because you see, there's this odd phenomena in the DMT community. So the people who don't know, dimethyltryptamine is a powerful psychedelic compound which basically takes you to the spirit realm for 10 minutes and back. And it's become very popular in the past 6 years online. There's been huge proponents of this for the past 20 years from people like Terence McKenna. He's quite a big name in this. People like Joe Rogan have promoted doing this chemical on their podcast to communicate with entities and spirit beings. And the most common experience is usually a jester of some kind, is what people see. Now, from a psychological standpoint, Carl Jung has had an explanation for these symbols people see when they encounter the divine, and the jester is considered from a purely psychological, non-spiritual basis, an archetypal representation of the collective consciousness of humanity, but more specifically their shadow. And the jester appears to teach people how to integrate their shadow with themselves, the dark side, in order to become more whole as an individual. I personally think that's a lot of nonsense, and I think these entities are real disembodied spirits of the Nephilim that used to roam on the earth in the antediluvian age from biblical history. They have a reason for being there. They have a history why they're there. They're not some kind of symbolic representation of collective consciousness of humanity. I think they are real, tangible, separate entities from ourselves with their own personalities and separate beings. And they're just simply disembodied. So, from that understanding of the past, my experience with psychedelics, I knew those things already existed. And I've made this connection not lightly. I'm not simply writing this 328-page book just off that alone. But that was kind of my starting fueling point moment. And, I had my own experiences coming off of the psychedelics where I was demonically oppressed and attacked. And I did encounter one of these jesters myself. So I have to, seeing is believing. And after seeing something like that, I didn't really know what to do with it for a long time until one thing led to another. And through a series of odd events and spiritual experiences, which I've expressed a lot on my channel in many podcasts, and then time is short today, so I'm going to speed ahead. But in 2016, the 2016 clown sightings happened. And I'm sure you'll remember this. People were dressing up like clowns and just scaring people, scaring them witless, standing at the edge of like dark forests holding knives and balloons and just staring menacingly at people, and it became like a mass hysteria phenomena, because you noticed every small news station from east to west, and I mean that quite literally on the earth, not just in America, was experiencing this thing, and was reporting on it. And I knew enough in my own conspiratorial research by that point that the media wouldn't be showing this if it didn't mean something symbolically. Nothing gets on the box in the corner of the room without it meant, if it's not supposed to be there, So that was my one of my many clues that made me realize the clown must symbolize something. It's a symbol. It means something. This is a message, they're trying to send to people here. People are seeing clowns mysteriously, and just as mysteriously they disappear, type of thing. And I a huge brainstorm situation kind of happened. And after piecing together a lot of this bizarre knowledge I kind of accrued over the years, I just did some looking into clowns and Nephilim, and I found nobody had ever really discussed the two topics or made any connection to it, really. There was one person who had made like a joke. He made this mockumentary video in a History Channel style, and the channel was called The Epic Conspiracy, and he made this mock video making fun of conspiracy theorists, and he was talking about the Nephilim as his subject matter, and he kind of said something like, the Nephilim are always depicted as having white skin and red hair. There's only one explanation. They're interdimensional killer clowns from outer space, you know, and he kind of went on that trope and, again, mocking anybody who believes in the Nephilim, basically. But I was thinking, maybe you're onto something there. You know, I think there's something odd going on here with the Nephilim and clowns. I think there's something. So I didn't realize when I started investigating this that there would be so much there. I really didn't think it would turn into a series with 44 episodes spanning over like 8 years with a book and a second book on the way. I really did not anticipate any of this. But once you start rolling with this idea and this concept, you start to realize that, yes, not only did the Nephilim have clown-like features in the past, inherited from their parents, who were the seraphim angels, the fiery flying serpents, dragons, who had mated and mixed themselves with the daughters of Cain, who it's possible, from some of the research I've been doing and looking into extra biblical texts, the mark of Cain may have been extremely white, leprous-coloured skin. So if you mix those two things together, a very colourful reptile with a white-skinned human, you get something that looks like a clown as a result of that. They certainly don't look like very tanned Conan the Barbarian, ripped bodybuilders wearing loincloths like you often see depictions of the Nephilim. They would have looked like extremely terrifying, wild, psychedelic monsters. And my work has led me to basically become an anthropological study into cultures all over the earth on every continent who still have the ancient folk traditions. And if you follow their traditions scattered all over every continent, you'll find patterns emerging. They all believe they're contacting the ancestors, they call them. But they don't mean grandma or granddad like we would use that word to mean in the English language. That's just the best translation we have for what they're talking about. What they mean is the ancient primordial gods of a far forgotten past. And what they do is they dress in a certain way to channel those spirits. They dress like the thing to mirror the thing in the spirit realm in order to channel them through their own body. And they'll tell you that's what they're doing. And lo and behold, the pattern's the same. They white up the skin as much as they can. They often put polka dots on their body or multicolored fractal patterned dresses covered in frills or diamonds or whatever the culture resources have available to themselves in their specific geographical location, they will use. Some cultures use straw because they're very poor. Some use very elaborate sequins, because they've got access to dyes and things like that. But generally speaking, they wear a clown costume, make the skin as white as possible, and wear a red or golden headdress made of various materials. They basically look like clowns because they're trying to represent something specific. And I believe they're all basically communicating with the same thing, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim that used to roam the earth, who are now bodiless, still stuck here on earth, just behind a veil we don't normally perceive. And those people who take DMT, as we mentioned earlier, well, they open up those perceptions a little bit, increase the bandwidth just a little bit, and they start to see them. And they also look like clowns when they see them in the spirit realm. These are the entities these ancestor spirit worship cultures are trying to mimic with their costumes. And then it gets even darker. Sorry to ramble, but just to summarize the point. Not only is that apparent, and a lot of my research is showing all of these things, but then you look into secret societies of the Western world, and you look into the origins of the clown costume, and you realize it was an invention of secret societies, and it was injected into popular media of the day in the 1800s, British theatre, later became a staple of circuses, going through to the 19th and 20th centuries, all run by Freemasons. Every last one of it, all the history of a clown as we know it, is intrinsically linked with the craft and the brotherhood and the fraternity of Freemasonry. And I believe what they have done is created a Western version of the same costumes worn by all these other cultures around the earth who are channeling demons. But we in the West don't know that that's what it's for. Only the initiated do. It's an occult symbol. It's a hidden symbol that only the initiated are supposed to recognize. So when it was used on the news in 2016, it certainly was a message to those who were in the know. It's something like the Nephilim are returning, in a sense. And anyone who knew what the clown symbol represented would have probably got that message from that media event. And I'm not just saying this as somebody who's just rambling like a madman. I read the book, watch the videos, I brought the receipts. Okay, this is not actually even hidden if you go and actually look into it. And I suppose I'm just the first guy to actually compile the information in a way that makes sense, then kind of brought it to the public attention in a way. But yeah, make no mistake, the costume of a clown is and always has been a literal representation of demons. In the initial sense, coming through the Middle Ages, Harlequin was modelled after the Europeans' version of the demon called the Wild Man. And then later, when the clown had a costume change in the 1800s, it was modelled after the Rakshasa demons, the giants, the man-eating monsters, the hybridized, wide-grinning, buck-teeth, bulging-eyed, white-skinned beasts, cannibals of India. And again, I've shown this visually and with historical documents to back it up.
Let me ask you a question here.
Sure.
Because I live here in Florida, right? And we have the Ringling Museum, Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a huge, giant art museum. There's like huge buildings, and then there's a big mansion. It's right on the water. It's big grounds. There's a college next door. Mm-hmm. And within this, they have the Circus Museum. It's like just a small portion of this giant museum is a circus museum. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating. The average person, because now, you go to the circus, okay, they come to Madison Square Garden, for a weekend, But when the circus would come to town back in those days, it was like a whole city coming to your city. They hundreds of horses and wagons and meal service and support. They had their own blacksmith for the horseshoes. Incredible how big huge this thing was. And I had never realized that. But now you're telling me that there's a Freemason origin to all this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Explain.
I mean, even if you look into the development of the circus through the Americas in the early stages of this, first of all, it was inherited from the British. But the theatre version of clown, which came from the pantomime of British theatre, didn't really work in America because of the expansionist movement going out west. It's kind of like the show had to travel. They couldn't just base themselves in a theatre because they wouldn't have much business because the people were moving all the time, So this is where you find the travelling big top became a distinctly American creation. But you look into it and they're all run by Shriners, okay? They're all historically run by people who are members of the craft. It stopped being kind of like rich, influential aristocrats running theatres in Britain, and it became businessmen, media moguls running it in America instead, who were just in it for the money and power and the influence, And if you look into the most famous of these people, it was actually a P.T. Barnum, Phineas Taylor Barnum, who was a partner with Bailey for Barnum and Bailey's Ringling Brothers Circus, the combined circus of all three of those put together, which is now based in Sarasota, Florida. Yeah. But if you look into the history of P.T. Barnum, he was a charlatan. He was a con man through and through. All of his money was made by lying to the public and pretending he had odd curiosities. He claimed to have a real mermaid and advertised having a real mermaid in his museum. And all it was a monkey head sewn onto a fish. Things like this. He was infamous for doing stuff like that. He once claimed to have a real giant, but then some guy sued him because he said, no, I've got the real giant. P.T. Barnum has a fake one, and he's copying me and stealing all my business. Anyway, the judge threw the case out and was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. I'm not even presiding over this case. So he got away with it. And I think the prosecutor said something like, there's a sucker born every minute. Yeah. That's where that phrase comes from, over that particular case. But yeah, P.T. Barnum, if you look into it, he brought the freak show to the circus. He was a very, very brilliant businessman. And he kind of adopted himself into the business of circusing. And obviously he teamed up with Bailey, who had a big menagerie of animals, and he had the freak show, and they created this thing, the Barnum and Bailey combined circus. But if you look into P.T. Barnum, he was a member of the Odd Fellows. Now, the Odd Fellows are they're an offshoot of Freemasonry. Albert Pike was a member, but so were a lot of other extremely powerful men. King George V was a member. Okay, but at the same time, never mind U.S. Senates, and powerful all presidents, prime ministers of Canada and the UK, all these type of people. actors were also members. Charlie Chaplin was a member. You know, it's really odd. And obviously, P.T. Barnum being a member was running a particular entertainment industry, which was the circus at the time. And if you look at the logo of the Oddfellows, it's 3 interlocking rings. And P.T. Barnum was the man who invented the 3-ring circus. So he brought his own Freemasonic symbolism into the ritual of the circus performance. Now, get this, okay? So around the same time, all these circuses that were around America all combined together. There was 10 circuses involved in this particular show. It was called King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. And it was a huge spectacle, like nothing that you've ever seen before. I think there was like 17 rings or something stupid to this thing, you know, and it had like literally the manpower of 10 different circuses all coming together to put on this epic performance about King Solomon and his mysterious wife from a foreign land, you know. And the funny thing is, if you look into it, all of it was run by Freemasonry. All the costumes were designed by the company who made all the costumes for Freemasonic lodges. You know, the little ribbon, the bibs they wear and the medals they like to wear and stuff. All made by the same company who made the costumes for these performances. The artwork was made by Belossi Coralfi, a famous artist of the time and prominent Freemason in the London Lodge. Everything was just a Freemason affair. They all kept it in-house, let's put it that way. And King Solomon is the obsession of Freemasonry. They're all obsessed with rebuilding his temple. Like King Solomon's like the original Freemason. But get this. Let's just look at the image of a circus. Okay, you have the ringleader. He wears a top hat and has a cane. Okay? And then he orchestrates the circus. Okay? And he orchestrates the clowns, doesn't he? And he makes them perform and do things. So that's actually an analog of the same rituals performed within a Freemasonic lodge. And this particular performance, King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, was a reenactment of a particular Freemasonic ritual, which you see on a very small scale in lodges originally. The ringleader is King Solomon. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but if you look at, and then this isn't even a secret, actually. You can go to a very basic Masonic website and type this in. But they'll tell you only the worshipful Grand Master of a lodge is allowed to wear a hat. More traditionally, a black top hat. It represents the crown of Solomon. So the ringleader, who wears the black top hat in a circus, is a Solomon analog. And there's this classic tale from more like Talmudic tradition stories about King Solomon that come in later iterations after the 1st century. But there's this story of King Solomon being given a ring by an angel. And this ring gives him the power to control demons. And he used the power to use the demons to build his temple. Okay? So he is the Lord of the Ring. He is the ring master. He is King Solomon, the Lord of the Ring. And that's what the ringleader of a circus is. And he uses the ring to control the demons, to build the temple, while the ringmaster controls the ritual, to control the clowns, who are the demon analogues, to put on the performance. So it's, symbolically speaking, it's all there when you actually decode what a circus performance actually is. Yeah,
you know, that's fascinating. And if you look at the story of King Solomon, toward the end of his life, he had erected those Asherah poles, which were used for human sacrifice for the purpose of political power. You know? Yeah. And he also said at the end of his life he never met a woman he trusted. Okay, but everybody says, oh, ignore that. You know, the wisest man in the world said he never met a woman he trusted.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this, though. Have you ever had an opportunity to go to the Ringling, down in Sarasota, to the Ringling Museum?
I was actually in Florida at the start of the year, funnily enough, but I never got a chance to get there, no. The thing is, right, I know I've written the book on the subject, but I'm not really somebody who cares about clowns or circuses. I'm really not, you know. It isn't like a lifelong obsession of mine or anything. I'm not like somebody who's ever followed clowns or jesters, or I don't care about the Joker, for example, you know what I mean, from Batman or something. I'm not that interested in circusry and clowns, but I've somehow inadvertently fallen backwards into being some kind of quasi-expert on the topic just by virtue of studying these odd connections, you know. But if I have plenty of people explaining to me and telling me about the Sarasota Ringling Brothers, and by the way, every single Ringling brother was a member of the lodge. They were all Freemasons. I just had to throw that in there as well. But even today, you know, most of the modern circuses in America are still run by the Shriners, and every Shriner sect has their own clown segment within it, and they always perform to dying children in hospitals. And I believe, well, first of all, what's a Middle Eastern themed secret society or fraternity doing dressing like Western clowns? That makes absolutely no sense until you start to consider what I'm talking about here. They know what that costume represents, and you have to wonder what they're actually doing when they wear that costume. To us, it's a bit of fun for the kids. To them, it's possible they are channeling the very entities they are in communication with and work with, So it gets quite sinister when you really start to think about this.
Especially getting that energy from the death of these children in these hospitals.
Well, that's another. Yeah, I mean, I think is it Robert Monroe who came up with the term loosh. This idea that there's this spiritual energy, fear that's generated, that demons kind of feed off it. And clowns really only give you two visceral reactions: extreme joy and laughter, or extreme fear. And I don't think there's a much difference between fear and laughter. I think it's a fine line between the two. I think it's the same parts of the brain that light up when that happens. I think it's the same muscles that are used to laugh and or cry. And I think a clown is a perfect mechanism to generate that kind of gut reaction from children. And you have to wonder, why is coulrophobia, the fear of clowns, such a big fear, And could it be maybe we collectively remember something? Because these things were, from a biblical narrative standpoint, they were predators. They ate humans. We were prey to them. And maybe we've developed some kind of instinctual aversion to anything that looks like a clown because it's in our DNA.
Nobody wants to get eaten.
Well, exactly. Maybe that's purely speculation. I don't know, but these are the type of thought processes you end up going down when you think about this. I mean, a level above shrining and in the fraternity is actually, and this is, by the way, invite only. You can't ask to be a member of this particular group. You can only be invited, and they only invite 13 people a year. It's called the Royal Order of the Jesters. It's just a step up above shrining. They're based in Indiana. That's where you'll find the headquarters for the Royal Order of the Jesters. And this is public knowledge, by the way. You can go and find the FBI records yourself. They are heavily involved in some very, very dark things involving human trafficking, child trafficking, prostitution rings, things like this. And that's just, I don't think I'm even allowed to say out loud what some of the things these people have been caught doing. And their members are very powerful people, and they've got caught doing these things and basically got a slap on the wrist by any standard. The punishment did not fit the crime, let's put it that way. And you have to wonder how they got away with these things. And I cover a lot of this in my book. There's a great book by someone called, I think her name's Sandy off the top of my head. She wrote a book called Vampires of Charity. And she basically exposes the Shriners and the Jesters for the tax fraud they've committed as well, in many ways. But also by bringing light to those particular nefarious actions, she also sheds light on their power to shut people up, shall we say. And yeah, it's just odd that the Jester and the Clown is intimately linked throughout the fraternity, even to the very top, the Royal Order of the Jesters. And like I say, they run all the circuses today still, and you have to wonder what the true purpose is once you start to.
I'm sorry. First of all, I'm a member of the Ringling Museum. Okay, so I'm going to go down there. I'm going to take pictures of this miniature circus coming to town. It's this huge. It's overwhelming.
Oh yeah.
But now I had another guest on my show here, Daniel Hopsicker, who wrote a book called Muhammad Atta's Flying Circus. And he said that there's also an overlap of U.S. intelligence agencies working within the circus system. Do you know anything about that?
Not particularly. It sounds fascinating, though. It sounds like something I want to know about, so go ahead.
No, I can't remember to tell you the truth. Okay. Well, we were talking about our born-again experiences. Mine took place, the second one. I was arrested for marijuana smuggling charges back in Arizona, and they released me out on bail on my birthday, the day before my birthday. That's when I went to church and gave my life to the Lord. And in that next 30 days, I was approached both by the Freemasons trying to recruit me and the Church of Scientology.
Yeah. Yeah, well... These people are everywhere.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way, and they are always looking to bulk out their numbers with anybody who they can consider useful. And clearly they must have seen some use in you. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's interesting, too, that they saw that I was in a time of crisis in my life, They had that information.
Yeah, I mean, they prey on the weak. They prey on those searching for some sense of brotherhood or fraternity or answers. People who are perhaps after knowledge or power as well. They're searching for those people, and like I said, they're trying to bulk out their ranks. And again, those who end up climbing the ladder and becoming the top levels, I think you'll start to find clowning starts to become a part of their life. I mean, one thing that's very odd, and this is a fun example to kind of flesh this idea out, but John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah.
What was he? We all know what he was famous for, okay? He's been dubbed like the clown killer, He killed 33 young men and boys, And it's only halfway through his killing spree did he actually start dressing like a clown. And if you look into John Wayne Gacy's life, he was heavily involved in politics in his local area. I think he was a member of the Moose Lodge, which is like a low-level Freemasonic sister lodge of some kind. But when he started dressing like a clown, I think it came not long after he was caught talking to two men about not going down for their mistake or something like this. It's one of the many evidences that were brought against him, to take him down. And he was basically talking to smugglers, human traffickers.
Oh, absolutely.
Who had trafficked for him a couple of victims, all right? And what did I mention earlier? Who are involved in human trafficking, quite intimately. And he was based, I think it's Chicago, isn't it? I think that all went down. He actually was I've looked into it, he was only an hour away from his local Royal Order of the Jesters Lodge, and he was only an hour and a half drive away from the headquarters of the Royal Order of the Jesters. So I wouldn't be surprised if he started dressing like a clown halfway through his murdering spree, because he learned what that actually means and what it's useful for. Perhaps he wanted to get in touch with the Nephilim and channel them like all these other cultures around the world use the same costume to do. I think he may have locked into something in some way. And a lot of it's a chicken and the egg situation. It's kind of like, do serial killers become demonic, therefore end up manifesting the demon within them by dressing like a clown? Or do they seek the demonic and dress like a clown to get the demonic influence and then start being evil? It's hard to know how it works necessarily, but the connections there and obviously the proximity to this particular cult, and knowing that he was involved with people trafficking victims.
Oh, absolutely. John Wayne Gacy was involved in trafficking. He was connected to Dean Coral, too, who was a trafficker in that area as well. And another fellow who was arrested for a child prostitution ring. Now, I heard this story about one of the victims buried underneath Gacy's house. The mother didn't believe it was her son. And I heard this story, so I contacted her lawyer several times, tried to get him to come on the show. Finally, he says, no, talk to this private investigator named William Dorsch. And he knows all about it. In fact, he knew Gacy. He went out to dinner with Gacy. I bring Dorsch on the show, right? Dorsch tells me that there was another location where Gacy had a landscaping job, where he was digging these huge 6-foot deep trenches around this apartment complex. I think it was Miami Boulevard. And Dorsch hired this company, a ground penetrating radar company. I have the letter from the company. They discovered anomalies under that ground that they believe are bodies. And when they got permission from the police to go dig there, the police would not allow them to dig at the specific spots where they pinpoint the bodies. Other areas they let them dig, but not at those exact spots, right?
How bizarre.
Oh, get this, man, okay? Rodney Acala, the dating game killer in California, he was a film student of Roman Polanski, and he was killing all these people over there too, right? It turns out that this son of this woman who suspected that her son wasn't buried under, that it wasn't really her son, she wanted to do a DNA test. Someone sends me a picture of one of the Rodney Acala victims. It was the same kid 2 years later.
Wow.
You follow?
Well, so, yeah, I mean, this... Go ahead, sorry.
They were trafficking these kids and keeping them alive.
Well, yeah, it's hard. Honestly, my research into it's heartbreaking. Yeah. Like it really, it's you're looking into the abyss here when you start researching these things. Just the surface level stuff I had to look into about the trafficking involved and the victims of Gacy and obviously what the jesters were caught doing, and it's truly harrowing to know that this evil is present in our world, and to then incorporate clowns into it just makes it even more terrifying. To be honest, and I suppose that wasn't my intention, but yeah, no, I feel you on that one. Let's put it that way.
And this clown stuff goes back to the court jester of the kings.
Well, funnily enough, the court jesters are more of a kind of a representation of the king. They dress like the king,
right?
So they're not really dressing like Nephilim. They're dressing like the king to mock the king, and that was kind of their shtick. They come out of a tradition out of Rome, the jesters. So when the collapse of Rome kind of was in full swing and Catholicism was taking over, it was kind of seen as like filthy, like a prostitute to be an actor, because you're a liar. You're pretending to be something you're not, So a lot of these out-of-work actors now kind of became hired as private actors for the rich and influential, because who's going to, tell off the king for having a private actor, It kind of came like a hot commodity among the rich to have their own private jester. So that's kind of where that came from, having your own personal comedian. But certainly going through the tradition of Rome, the image of a jester developed more Nephilim-esque features as they went into the carnival, for example. But carnival, where you see a lot of these jester-like images, which are closer to the clown with the white face, is modeled after the wild man tradition. And you'll find the wild man tradition is all throughout Europe, not just even Venice and Rome. So it's kind of it's an odd mix of history, but the jester originally wasn't really actually anything to do with demons or the Nephilim, but it did kind of get incorporated and amalgamated in the modern age into kind of like the same thing. Harlequin is kind of something the jester's form mimicked a little bit, and Harlequin, as I mentioned earlier, from the comédie de l'art movement through the Middle Ages, is modelled after big, hairy, wild, club-wielding beasts, giants who ate people. So the Nephilim, basically, of Europe. So there is kind of an odd, small link there, and I think as it got modernized, it developed more clownish features. But the original jesters didn't look anything like a clown. They looked just like the king, just a silly version of the king. You know what I mean? Like an over-exaggerated, mocking version of a king. Yeah, it's interesting history when you look into it. I do cover it in the book.
Did you look into Jimmy Savile? He seemed to be like the jester for the modern-day royals, and almost like a magician, clearly serial rapist.
Oh, yeah.
Plus the other allegations,
They covered up for that guy. Everyone knew what was really going on. And this is it. The whole industry is rife with this. And what he got outed as doing is pretty commonplace stuff, and he's certainly not the only one doing it. He's just the only one that got sacrificed or caught, in a way. But he certainly has been shown as a jester many times, and I think he was a member of these same fraternities and societies and probably knew what that was. I mean, the entertainment industry is a fascinating one. I cover it a lot because you'll find the real secret to kind of making it in the music industry is not to have talent necessarily. It's just to dress like a psychedelic clown monster, and you'll end up being elevated and put in front of people because the industry is in the game of creating idols. Okay, so let's think of the most obvious example, David Bowie and his representation, Iggy Stardust. Okay, white skin, red hair, psychedelic patterned clothing, basically like a space clown. When he dies, he's elevated to be like a legend or a god in some way. He has influenced so many artists below him to emulate him, and that's what they're doing. If you dress that way as a performer, you will be put in the spotlight by the societies who own the industry because they want people to copy you. They want more people dressing that particular way, and they want them to think, well, if I dress this way, I'll be famous like David Bowie was, And all you're doing really is opening up more channels. You're getting more and more people to dress like clowns, and therefore strengthening the channel between the spirit realm and allowing demons to more readily possess people. And I don't think ignorance of this spiritual law defends you from it. I certainly don't think your intentions matter either, is what I'm learning. People say, like, well, I dress like a clown, but my intent is to make people smile. It's kind of like, I don't care what your intentions are. I think dressing that way is playing with fire, is what I'm learning, basically, through my research here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's power in those images, but there's also power in the spoken voice, Mm-hmm. God spoke a creation into existence.
I want to end this, because we're coming up on time here. But I do want to end this by basically saying they are a defeated enemy. So I'm not trying to hype them up here as something to be scared of. in the authority we've been given in the name of Jesus Christ, we can tread on serpents. And that's what these things are. They're serpent hybrids. They are dragon hybrids, monsters who have been defeated. They crave a body. They lost. We have bodies, and they are desperate to have another body. That's what possession really is all about. That's what these things are in the game of trying to do. They're trying to get into somebody else's body so they can feel what it's like to have a tongue and a nose and eyes and ears and fingers again, feel stuff and taste things and smell things and see things. And again, if you dress like a clown, you're just making it easy for them. And this is why you'll find, now I've said this and I brought it to your attention, you're going to see the clown everywhere. And you're going to see it used in the way I'm talking about, obviously, as well. But fundamentally, you can cast these demons out just by evoking the name of Jesus.
Oh, absolutely.
Very simple.
Yeah,
have no fear, is what I'm trying to say here. And like I said, at the start, I explained, this is a hook to get people to really contemplate biblical history and spiritual warfare. If the clown is what it takes to get people to understand these things, then so be it. And I get plenty of messages of people telling me, I've brought them and their faith to Christ just by simply researching this particular topic. And it seems silly that that's what we need, isn't it? The clown to bring, likewise, other people who are interested in religious stuff to get to understand Christ and the biblical history. But we live in a clown world after all today, don't we? So if that's what it takes, then I will listen to God and write the book,
Let me ask you this real quick, because you have on your YouTube channel here, Understanding Conspiracy, this video here, who are we if Christ already reigned for 1,000 years? I've never even considered that. Can you describe that to us?
Oh, that's a show for another time.
Can you abbreviate it? Give you a little abbreviated version?
Yeah, that's a very relatively new theory going around in the conspiracy truth Christian world that kind of is speculating on the idea that it seems like the common belief in Christian worldviews today is futurism, that we're all waiting for Christ to return, okay? We're waiting for tribulation to come upon us, and then for Christ to come and establish his eternal kingdom. What we are perhaps discovering, and what I'm thoroughly seeping myself in and trying to understand currently, and I've made a lot of work on it, and I'm interviewing big names who are spreading these ideas, and I think I'm getting pretty close to believing most of it as 100% fact now, to be honest, because the evidence is getting a little bit overwhelming. But I believe there's been a game at play to make us believe that we're in the wrong time in history. Because what a lot of people don't realize is after Christ returns, there's a 1,000-year period where he reigns with the resurrected saints. But it also says in Revelations 20 that time ends. And then the devil is let loose to deceive all the nations and gather an army to make war with the saints on earth somewhere. And that time is called the little season. It could be that we are actually living in that time period, and Christ has already returned and tribulation has already happened around 70 AD, about 40 to 50 years after his ascension, after Pentecost. And we're not waiting 2,000 years for Christ to return. That's the lie. It already happened. And we are living in the little season just before the final great white throne judgment at the end of time. And then a new heaven and a new earth is established. So that's it in a nutshell. But honestly, there is so much to unpack there. I'm sure you have many hundreds of questions, many things reeling in your mind, and it's a roller coaster of a subject.
Well, then real quick, how long would we have to wait then if this is,
Oh, well, how long's a piece of string? The little season isn't defined as a time period. We don't know how long a little season is, and that's, again, I'm not saying we have all the answers with this theory. We're living in the dark with this one. But there is certainly, it is evident that there's a lot of stuff to back up this concept. Let's put it that way.
Now, does this encompass the Tartarian reign, Because that would kind of...
Yeah, actually, it's the Christian answer to the Tartarian Empire stuff. It's not Tartaria that we're looking into here. What you're seeing is remnants of a 1,000-year period where Christ ruled on earth and the devil was locked up. So you're seeing a time where humanity advanced to an extreme level, unencumbered by the devil and with extended life and ultimate health. And in that time, which people have called the Tartarian Empire, that was actually the millennial reign of Christ. And what they created in that time was these beautiful old world buildings. And honestly, the architecture is just one part of the evidence for this. But a lot of people have, equated Tartary to being like a Russian, Siberian, Mongolian supremacist type kingdom that kind of spread all over the earth. But I think it's more likely what you're seeing are remnants, or the remnants of the millennial reign of Christ. I think that's more of a Christian, biblically grounded answer to what that truly is.
Yeah, I never considered that before, but it does seem to fit.
Honestly, Ed, now you've learned about this. I keep doing this to people. I'm sorry. Yeah. This is a tough one. Okay, this is not something you're gonna understand and accept overnight. But I implore you, look into it. It's really interesting.
Now, when you do this, what is this Sunday live show, the Truth Therapy Sessions? What do you do there?
The Truth Therapy Sessions. Well, my channel's multifaceted. I might be known as the Nephilim Clown guy, and right now I'm also currently known as the Millennial Reign guy as well. I end up falling into these odd topics and end up becoming like a big character in them without meaning to. But my channel at the start was all about helping truthers kind of deal with learning these horrible things, and also the pitfalls we all have when we wake up. For lack of a better phrase, I don't like using that kind of New Age Matrix term of waking up, but when you start to realize a few truths, our tendency is to go out there and try and tell everybody we love, and the usual reaction is utter rejection, and you lose friends and family. They start thinking you've lost your mind, and it's because we tend to get passionate and we start rambling excessively, and we look like lunatics because we're excited and also terrified about what we've just learned. And my work, I'm hoping, is to help people kind of deal with losing friends and family, or finding better ways to share the information. Because I believe fundamentally, people don't buy products because they really like the product. They buy the person selling them the product. And I think we should apply the same methods to truth. Just because it's true doesn't mean people are going to believe it. They're going to look at you telling them the truth, and if they don't like you, they're not going to believe it. Because fundamentally what they're thinking is, I don't want to end up like this crazy idiot rambling in front of me if this is what he believes. I don't want to believe what he believes because I might end up like him, So I'm kind of I have a lot of these type of meta conversations about being in the truth movement, and the Truth Therapy Sessions is just that. It's kind of talking to the followers, letting them vent. I often have call-ins where they share their own stories to waking up and the processes they went through. And it's more of like a cathartic experience to help the community as a whole kind of deal with it,
I got to tell you, man, you're a fascinating guy. Paul Stobbs we're talking to. I never had that issue. When I got saved, I actually went to go travel with a tent ministry up in Maine. I was up and down the whole East Coast as an evangelist. Mm-hmm. But when I got saved, man, everybody around me got saved. My parents got saved. All my friends, my ex-girlfriends were all coming to church with me. We were going to call it the Church of the Ex-Girlfriends. So the ex-girlfriend showed up. But we've been talking to Paul Stobbs. I got to tell you, man, check this stuff out. Understanding Conspiracies YouTube channel. Then on Sundays, he's got this live show called Truther Therapy Sessions. But the book is The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns, Volume 1. Is it going to be a Volume 2?
Yeah, I have another 20 chapters. I'm already kind of a third of the way through finishing off. I was originally just going to do one book, but it's getting too big. Yeah. So I've split it into two, yeah.
And consider this. The book came out July 2nd, 2024. The ink's barely dry. Already 56 ratings. So this is all 5-star ratings on his book. Now, what about, do you have a Patreon to support your work?
Yeah, I'm on Patreon. There's lots of extras on there, after show talks, things like that with guests, stuff that's a bit too spicy for YouTube. It's on there as well. I have a Telegram group, which I mentioned as well, which is a solid community, and there's loads of subheadings and topics on there, prayer groups and things like this, testimonies, dreams, clown stuff, media, there's loads of topics on there, so that's fun as well. I am, like I said, predominantly based on YouTube. Amazon is a good way to support me by just buying the book. I think I've sold 1,600 copies so far, so it's doing really well. It seems to be reaching a lot of people, which is great. But yeah, you can support me on Patreon if you want to. Yeah,
1,000 books in 3 or 4 months is excellent. And Patreon is called Understanding Conspiracy?
That's right. Yeah.
You know, it's just funny too. You're talking about all this clown stuff and circus stuff. I was with a tent in ministry. You know, that was kind of like the circus. We would put the tent up, you know, drive those tent pegs, do the whole thing there. Oh my goodness. Listen, Paul, I really enjoyed meeting you here, my friend. Paul Stobbs, Stobbs, Understanding Conspiracy on YouTube. And once again, the book is The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns, Volume 1, The History. Check that out on Amazon. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Good night, sir.